Nickfrey. I have the Avengers. Charlotte. Doyle. I have an understanding of the organization Nickfrey. My Avengers are strong. Charlotte. Doyle. I know how to organize a team, invincible. Nickfrey. We defend Earth and can tell aliens that humans have the power to seek revenge. Charlotte. Doyle. In addition to defending against enemies, we will take the divine tree to plant in outer space. Nickfrey. I am the director of the Divine Shield Agency, responsible for overseeing all threatening creatures on Earth. Charlotte. Doyle. Snake Shield Bureau. Charlotte. Doyle arrived at Marvel World with his Naruto mobile game, and he was sure to make a fuss. Keywords of the novel. Marvel's Naruto. No pop-up window, full collection download of Marvel's Naruto TXT, latest chapter reading of Marvel's Naruto. Chapter 1. Charlotte Doyle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Charlotte Doyle Marvel Cinematic Universe, Non-Sacred Timeline. Mainland Hotel, top floor. Boss, there is a new assassination mission worth $2 million. Would you like to consider it? A blonde beauty with a hot figure, wearing a professional dress and dressed as a secretary, stood in front of Charlotte Doyle and spoke calmly. Oh, $2 million, this price is not low. First, let me provide specific information about the task, and then I will consider whether to take on this $2 million task. Do you know me? I am quite picky about task goals, but is the target a black person? Sitting by the windowsill, Charlotte held a square whiskey glass in her hand and slowly shifted her gaze away from the view outside, shifting her gaze to Ginny who was speaking. Not black, Charlotte, you've become a black assassin now. Some African American assassins in mainland hotels have a strong opinion of you. Charlotte played with the glass in her hand and said seriously, I hate two types of people the most in my life. Racial discrimination and black people. If those miscellaneous people have any objections to me, just let them come and talk to me, and I will send them to where they should go. Seeing his serious tone, Ginny shrugged, indicating that everything you said was right. The target of this new bounty mission is John Wick, and the employer hopes to kill him as soon as possible. The amount is $2 million. Do you want to consider it? Upon hearing the name John Wick, Charlotte Doyle's thoughts drifted into the distance. A guy who destroyed the entire gang because of a dog. Is his plot about to start? Then I glanced at the photo of the target in Ginny's hand and confirmed that it was this guy, not the same name and surname. Charlotte turned the square cup in her hand and looked at the yellow-brown liquid inside. After taking a sip, she calmly said, the price is low, I won't accept it. Why? Ginny is a bit curious. You entered the industry relatively late, so you may not have a comprehensive understanding of a lot of information. John Wick, once the #1 assassin in the world of assassins, was also considered a legend in the assassin world before retiring. As Charlotte recounted, Ginny gained a clear understanding of the new guy on the task list and then nodded, saying, the price is indeed low. Although his gaze was fixed on Charlotte, he curiously asked, Ninja, how do we compare to you? Charlotte, on the other hand, said with a smile, he and I are not killers of the same world. Although Charlotte did not speak directly, her confident tone and indifferent attitude clearly did not consider John Wick's strength. Ginny's eyes flickered as she didn't dwell on the task. Instead, she spoke up, I'll go help you see what other tasks are suitable for you. Go ahead. After obtaining Charlotte's consent, he turned around and left the room, walking towards the direction of the hotel mission hall. Watching Ginny leave, Charlotte's gaze once again turned to the world outside the window. My name is Feng Yi and I come from Blue Star. When playing a Naruto mobile game and drawing a new character named Kasumi Hiro Jiraiya, he was tricked by the game planner and found out that he had thrown $3,000 but couldn't gather all the character fragments. He was so angry that he died suddenly in the same place. The result was inexplicably reborn into this world through time travel. The planet underfoot, although also known as Earth, is no longer the one Charlotte originally stayed on. After all, on Times Square in New York, the huge Stark Industries advertisement was exceptionally eye-catching, and the cover girl of Playboy's latest issue in entertainment newspapers once again fell into Tony Stark's arms. This is the Marvel Universe, or in Charlotte's eyes, it is even more regarded as a beautiful universe disguised as the Marvel movie universe. When Charlotte awakened her past life memories, she found herself in a rundown alley in New York, covered in tattered and dirty clothes. Looking at her appearance, Charlotte guessed that she was an orphan or a runaway bear child. As for the Naruto mobile game that angered him to death, it also turned into a golden finger and appeared in his consciousness. Just this despicable golden finger, as infuriating as before, has been loading all along. And our Charlotte Doyle was adopted by a killer couple at a mainland hotel, and then Charlotte, who was only 6 years old at the time, was trained as a killer. The cultivation of killer couples is already very abnormal, especially for such a picked-up child. It is very cruel. If it weren't for the constantly loading golden fingers in his mind, as the driving force for him to persevere, he might have died in the process of cultivation long ago. During this period, he stood with his hands covered in blood at a young age. If it is a child who knows nothing, they may not feel any discomfort in their hearts when they are raised, but become a true killer. However, from the land of China, a person with a kind heart, this kind of life has destroyed his values and reshaped his life. Back then, he had tried to escape, but unfortunately, his young body and unawakened golden fingers made his only attempt a failure, and he received severe punishment. Since then, he has not been trying to escape. Life is like rape, and if you can't change him, then choose to enjoy him. In this way, under the cultivation of the assassin couple, he rapidly grew and mastered various killing skills, including disguising, fighting, tracking and anti-tracking, marksmanship, and even physical and chemical aspects related to assassination, without any hesitation. As for the so-called compulsory education, middle school, high school, and university, they were completely far away from him and had no contact at all. After all, he was not the guy who loved drinking bourbon and had met a military tycoon who came to adopt him. Of course, there is not a shortage of basic education that should be provided. After all, as a professional assassin, I know even more knowledge than a student taking the college entrance examination, but the knowledge content is different. Under the training of the killer couple, on her 18th birthday, Charlotte Doyle awakened her golden finger and the damn Naruto was officially loaded. In the same year, he completed his killer graduation, and his name Charlotte Doyle came from the surname of his adoptive parents. Although he sacrificed them, he still inherited their surnames and even became a well-known assassin in mainland hotels as they had hoped. After all, before awakening the golden finger, he had already become a professional assassin on the high table, and with these more than a decade of study, Charlotte had no plans to switch careers. Investing books internally, please rest assured to invest. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Naruto. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Naruto. It has been over 3 years since I woke up my golden finger. Whenever you open the golden finger, Naruto's game interface will pop up a message, recharge V10 and immediately claim Sandstorm I love Luo. However, over the past 3 years, Charlotte Doyle has tried countless times, from dollars, pounds, rubles, and even precious metals such as gold and diamonds, all of which have been tried one by one, but unfortunately, they have had no effect at all. Whenever he chooses to recharge, it always prompts a recharge failure. Over the past 3 years, he has completely abandoned the idea of upgrading to VIP, and even tried to exchange Donggua's RMB, but it still has no effect. Opening the panel of Naruto, Charlotte Doyle appeared in front of him, along with an illusory night scene of Kiba village. His initial character was not the standard Naruto Vortex, but himself, Charlotte Doyle. In the past 3 years, he has already groped his golden fingers almost. You can sign in once a day. If you sign in successfully, you will be rewarded with copper coins, reputation, detonator, soul jade, reincarnation stone, delicious Lamian noodles, as well as tolerance recruitment volume, and gold coins that can only be obtained by recharging. Among them, copper coins and reputation are all used to cultivate spiritual skills and upgrade spiritual creatures, especially copper coins. Whether upgrading spiritual skills, enhancing equipment, or upgrading secret scrolls, they are all needed. Fortunately, both the copper coins and the US dollars awarded by the system can be converted to each other, with a conversion ratio of 1.1. This has led him to only convert copper coins over the past few years, without converting American knives. After all, copper coins are really not enough. As for the so-called soul jade and reincarnation stone, they are both items used to strengthen artifacts, and he has no idea how to obtain artifacts. And the recruitment role for the ninja realm, I don't know if it's too non-chieftain, or for some reason, has been obtained very little over the years. You can only get 1 or 2 copies in a month by signing in. When you're lucky, you only get 3 copies in a month, and when you're not good, you only get 1 copy in a month. As for the so-called VIP1-12 double sign-in reward, it is even more unfortunate for him. And the gold coins can only earn 50 in terms of attendance per month, and a regular recruitment scroll is worth 168 gold coins. As for the so-called limited recruitment and privileged recruitment, they are not suitable for him. As for the so-called team raid, trial ground, duel arena, leaderboard, points competition, between harvests, and ninja competition in the game, they are all gray and cannot be opened. I don't know if it requires special lighting conditions or any other requirements, but since he joined the Mainland Hotel Killer Association, the organization has lit up this building. At the same time, the mission gathering place was also illuminated, and all killer orders received from mainland hotels will be counted towards the mission gathering place. However, the task assembly requires characters to take over, and a maximum of 3 tasks can be taken at once within a day. That is to say, there is no possibility of rushing through the task set, and even the level of the task is determined here, divided into 5 task levels. S, A, B, C, and D. The rewards obtained for each task level are not the same, but the appearance of the task assembly not only allowed Charlotte to obtain tasks other than assassination, but also tasks such as protection, escort, and search. In this situation, outside the Mainland Hotel, he also opened an office called Charlotte's Office to undertake the above tasks. He will selectively accept any task recognized by the task assembly. In addition, there is also a built-in practice field in the system, which is not a place for battles in the game, but a real practice field in Hokage, just like the 8th practice field. Here, Charlotte can practice techniques such as ninjutsu, physique, illusion, and painless throwing. The only drawback is that there is no combat, which cannot increase his combat effectiveness. And over the past 3 years, he has also increased his own strength through the practice field. Being able to use ninjutsu proficiently can be said to be an indispensable contribution to the practice field. After all, he has built a place that is unmanned and has a large field, and is not far from mainland hotels, which will inevitably cost a lot of money. In terms of ninja recruitment, after 3 years and 30.6 months, he obtained a total of 50 ninja recruitment scrolls, adhering to the urine nature of the goose field, and used all 10 scrolls together. After all, not every ninja recruitment scroll can obtain ninjas or ninja fragments, as well as copper coins, reputation, equipment materials, etc. However, after 3 years, he also won 3 ninjas. Why not more? It's because when there is repeated recruitment, the ninjas will transform into fragments. B.level and above ninjas have 15 fragments, while C.level ninjas have 10 fragments. Unobtained C.level ninjas can be recruited by combining the same 10 fragments. For B.level ninjas, 40 identical ninja fragments are required. And A.level ninjas also require 40 identical ninja fragments. But for S.level ninjas, it becomes 100 identical ninja fragments. There is no pattern at all, and ninjas can also ascend from the lowest star to the highest 5 stars. 1 to 2 stars require 30 fragments. 60 fragments are required from 2 stars to 3 stars. 3 to 4 stars require 100 fragments. 4 to 5 stars require 200 fragments. Although each star upgrade can increase a character's full attributes, the difficulty is also very high, especially in the case of turning it into a golden finger. Obtaining character fragments is simply terrifying. Although the characters he acquired were all C-level ninjas and were considered garbage in mobile games back then, they were very impressive in the early stages of Marvel when they were able to be displayed. Just like his 3 ninjas, they are Uchiha Sasuke, without writing will eyes, skills. Hua Dun Hao Hua Chio, Lion Combo, Thousand Birds Hey Irika skills. Sword in Hand with Teaching Aids, Barrier Formation, Roar of Love Lock Lee skills. Infinite Dancing, Woodleaf Whirlwind, Lotus Flower. The recruited ninjas can use all their skills and obtain a C-level ninja standard chakra. They can also practice chakras themselves. The only disgusting thing is that Sasuke, who is already able to use Chihiro, doesn't have a Sharingan. This wave of operations is straightforward. Only when he successfully recruits the Sharingan Uchiha Sasuke can he obtain the Sharingan, without the visual dynamics falling behind Shinyao's sprint. And at this level, the Sharingan cannot be upgraded. If the character comes with a few Sharingans, he will use them. Although the 3 of them endured 1 in the middle and 2 in the bottom, the strength they displayed was very impressive in Marvel, which had not yet started a major event. As long as it is not hit directly by a handgun or bomb, the assassination power is still very impressive. After all, ordinary ninjas have low health and high attack. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. John Wick. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. John Wick. The ninjas recruited at the same time, when equipped with a battle bar, are able to manifest and become a living person in the Marvel world. Anime comes to reality. In addition to a built-in battle column, each battle column that opens requires the use of gold coins. Over the course of 3 years, he smashed all the gold coins he obtained by signing in onto the battle column, only opening 2 more. 3 prominent ninjas, including himself, can form a 3+1 team configuration. As long as there are enough positions in the battle column, he can even bring all the ninja characters to Marvel World. Simultaneously possessing prominent characters, possessing their own intelligence, but 100% loyal to the recruiter. If it weren't for 100% loyalty and not being able to harm him, he wouldn't dare to manifest them in this world. After all, there are some ninjas who are constantly engaged in various misdeeds. As for the psychic technique, he has only activated the ninja dog so far. As for the blue snake, toad, and even the tailed beast behind him, it has made him envious. Unfortunately, he has not even reached the full level of ninja dog cultivation. However, it's also fast. After gaining some reputation, he can also refine the ninja dog to its full level and activate the next summon, the blue snake. After reading her personal information, Charlotte Doyle finished drinking whiskey from her glass and slowly fell asleep on the bed. The next day, Charlotte, who had breakfast at the hotel, was sitting idle in the lobby, while his secretary, Ms. Ginny, was sent to his office by him. At this moment, Charlotte, who was sitting idle in the lobby, saw a man carrying a suitcase walking steadily towards the front desk of the hotel where he checked in. His step was steady, but his expression was solemn, and a sense of solemnity surrounded him. It was obvious that he had killed many people last night, and now it looked more like an active volcano that was about to erupt at any moment. "Hi, John." Charlotte extended a palm and greeted, saying that he had seen John more than once. Due to the influence of the psychic dog, he and Mr. and Mrs. John had met more than once while walking the dog, and it can be considered that they had exchanged contact information. John once called to inquire about some dog-keeping precautions when he received a gift from his lover. He can also be considered a somewhat friendly dog friend, especially when John met Charlotte and greeted him at a mainland hotel. He was also stunned and didn't expect him to be a killer at a mainland hotel. You should know that it has been 4 years since he left the assassin world because of his lover, and he has almost lost contact with everyone in mainland hotels. He is not very familiar with Charlotte's specific job. After hesitating for a moment, he slowly said, "Charlotte, I'm coming to the hotel to check in." Charlotte walked up and stopped 1 meter in front of John Wick, then slowly said, "You seem to be in trouble. Someone is offering $2 million, so do you need help? Just one contract badge is enough." He knew that although this had caused considerable trouble for John Wick, it would be a cost-effective option for him if he could simply put in some effort and get a contract badge for free. John Wick didn't pay attention when he heard that he had an additional $2 million bounty on him. After killing the assassin who came last night, he already knew that the other party wouldn't sit idly by and would definitely offer the bounty. So he slowly spoke up, "Not for now. If there is a need, I will contact you." "Okay, then let's get back in touch." Upon hearing John Wick's refusal, Charlotte did not pay attention. John Wick still had a lot of trouble and things were not always smooth. There was always a need, and she could also take the initiative to save people in seemingly dangerous situations, making them owe favors. After seeing Charlotte walk away, John Wick continued to walk towards the hotel front desk. At this moment, a beautiful assassin who had just finished checking in spoke to John Wick behind him, "Nice to meet you again, John." "Me too, Perkins." After the two of them greeted each other, John checked in and left the hotel lobby. Charlotte continued to sit in the lobby of the hotel, slowly drinking coffee. "Great show, it's about to start tonight." Night falls. In the underground bar of the Continental Hotel, Charlotte and Ginny were sitting in a booth not far from the entrance of the bar, drinking bourbon whiskey. "Charlotte, the John Wick you mentioned last night has already risen to $4 million, with 4 gold coins. Are you sure you're not considering it?" Ginny was now whispering the latest information she knew in Charlotte's ear. Charlotte extended her index finger and shook it. "I have a better plan," he explained, saying, "I don't consider this task." For John Wick, he is still very optimistic. Although he is just an ordinary person, his strength is also impressive, known as the Night Demon, and he is decisive in killing. If we can find help and hire him as a subordinate, it would still be a significant help for him in the early stages. After all, his 3 ninjas, although not mediocre in strength, have too few manpower and are somewhat stretched to do something. Just as they were talking, the door of the bar was opened and John Wick walked in. Upon seeing the visitor, Charlotte greeted them again. The voice reached John's ear. "Hi, John." Upon hearing Charlotte's voice, John saw 2 people not far from the entrance, scanned the bar, and saw Winston sitting in the booth. Then John walked up to Charlotte and said, "Good evening, Charlotte." Looking at John who came over to say hello, Charlotte spoke up and said, "John, your price has doubled, 400W plus 4 gold coins. Are you sure you don't need my help? Some newcomers nowadays don't follow the rules very well." Upon hearing Charlotte's words, John Wick's brow furrowed slightly. As a killer, he rushed to help, and it was certain that the other party needed him. He had already withdrawn from the killer world, and this time it was just a personal grudge. He did not want to fall into this quagmire again. But the price he offered as a reward doubled and he had 4 gold coins, which made John realize that things were no longer simple. There may be other assassins taking action for the bounty, but considering their own strength, they believe they can handle the situation. In the end, they politely thanked Charlotte for her kindness and said they can handle it temporarily. Subsequently, John Wick left Charlotte and walked straight towards the booth where Winston was located. He has some words to communicate with Winston, and at the same time, he also needs to know the current positions of those bastards. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Repeated Refusals. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Repeated Refusals. Ginny looked at John Wick as he walked away, her red lips rising slightly as she said, "Is this the Night Demon? It seems that the other party has rejected Lord Ninja. And this legendary assassin seems to have been beaten up. After speaking, Ginny stared at Charlotte Doyle with bright eyes, wanting to see how he answered. Charlotte Doyle smiled and said, "He has been out of the assassin world for 4 years, and it's normal for him to be suddenly attacked and injured. At this time, he doesn't want to have too much involvement with us. However, after retiring, he has once again stirred up waves. If he wants to have no connection with the assassin world, he may not be able to do it. This incident will completely drag him down. Moreover, no one can refuse Charlotte Doyle's kindness, nor can the Night Demon." At this moment, John Wick had already finished talking to Winston, and after obtaining the addresses of several thugs in Adina, he left the bar. Seeing John Wick leave, Ginny smiled and said, "He's gone. Do you want to follow up and take a look?" Charlotte Doyle shook her head and said slowly, "No need, he will still return to the hotel. The story has just begun, and there is still a chance." After a brief 2 drinks, Charlotte Doyle said, "Let me take you back. New York is not peaceful at night." The two of them left the Mainland Hotel and escorted Ginny back to her residence. Watching the door close, Charlotte Doyle turned around and returned to the Mainland Hotel. In the room, Ginny leaned against the door and slowly stood up after confirming that Charlotte Doyle had left. She has known Charlotte Doyle for some time now and has been her assistant for 6 months. She was originally an assassin at a textile factory, but not a registered member of a mainland hotel. A failed mission almost cost her life. It was also that mission, she left the textile factory, and at the end of the mission, she collapsed in front of Charlotte Doyle's house. The other party saved her, and since then, she has stopped working. Especially after learning that the other party was also a killer, she chose to become their assistant, helping Charlotte Doyle collect mission information and handle some miscellaneous matters. In the past 6 months, she has left the textile factory, and the other party has not contacted her again. It seems that she silently left, but today she received news from the textile factory that the Cross has rebelled. At this moment, she didn't know if she wanted to trouble Charlotte Doyle. On the other hand, Charlotte Doyle, who returned to the Mainland Hotel, waited quietly. His room was at the end of that floor, next to John Wick's room. Time slowly passes by. A door opened and Charlotte Doyle knew it was John Wick who had returned. Sure enough, not long after, the sound of fighting came from the neighboring room. Although Charlotte Doyle did not walk over, the scene of the fight was already known. Perkins, this female assassin who violated the rules of mainland hotels, was beaten in the face by John with a bedsheet covering her head. Charlotte Doyle knew that someone would notify the hotel front desk, so she had no intention of calling to notify. Thinking of the rules of mainland hotels, Charlotte Doyle felt a bit speechless. No killing allowed. There shouldn't be a problem with this, but after the other party takes action, you can't kill them in the hotel because you have to abide by the rules. After all, if the other party breaks the rules, you must abide by them, otherwise you will also be regarded as a rule breaker and will be punished by mainland hotels. Otherwise, John Wick wouldn't be lenient either. However, for a moment, the sound of the fight stopped and John achieved victory. At this moment, Charlotte Doyle opened her door and looked at Perkins crawling in the hallway, silently shaking her head. John, who hung up the phone, walked out and grabbed the other person from behind. He put a gun on Perkins's head and finally asked for the information he wanted, then he knocked the other person unconscious with the handle of his gun, and Harry, who was staying in the next room to John, heard the commotion and opened the door with a pistol. The sound of the pistol being loaded caught John's attention. John paused for a moment, unsure if the person behind him was an enemy or if he wanted to receive a reward from him. Without turning around, a voice came from behind. "Do we know each other?" Upon hearing the familiar voice, John Wick replied, "I should know you." At this moment, John Wick raised his hands, indicating that he had no intention of attacking. Just as I was about to turn around, I noticed that the front door was also open, with a man standing in front of me. It was Charlotte Doyle, who met twice in a day, paused for a moment, then turned around and greeted the black assassin behind him. "Hey, Harry." Harry glanced at the three of them, especially when he saw Charlotte Doyle. His pupils couldn't help but shrink, and then he said to John, "Is there nothing wrong?" John Wick replied, "It's okay. Then you can solve it yourself." Harry turned around and was about to return to the room when John Wick stopped him and said, "Hey, Harry. Do you want to earn a gold coin and help me take care of this sleeping guy?" Harry replied expressionlessly, "Do you want to catch it before releasing it?" John Wick also humorously replied, "That's right, cat and mouse games." Upon hearing John Wick's words, Harry took on the task, took out a pair of handcuffs from the room, locked Perkins's hands back, and brought them into his own room. Standing at the door, Charlotte Doyle held a bottle of Chivas Regal and an empty glass in her hand, and smiled at John Wick, who had already temporarily completed his task. "John, do you want to take a breath? You've been injured quite a bit." During the conversation, he pointed to John's injured abdomen with his hand holding a wine glass. Just now, Perkins punched here a few times, and blood had already seeped out, staining the gauze that was wrapping the wound red. John Wick walked forward, took the Chivas Regal and the glass, poured himself a glass, and drank it in one gulp. "This wine is good." After looking at the label, Chivas Regal 1987 returned the wine and glass to Charlotte Doyle. Charlotte Doyle took the wine and glass and said, "John, you're a bit embarrassed. Do you need any help with the upcoming actions?" "Charlotte Doyle, I have retired. This is a personal grudge that I can resolve." John Wick clearly did not want to get caught up in the quagmire of the assassin world again, and refused this friend who had always wanted to help. Charlotte Doyle shrugged her shoulders and regretfully said, "All right, John, then you need to be safe. If the night demon falls here, it will be a loss for the killer world." Then Charlotte Doyle turned around and returned to the room, closing the door. As for Harry, the black assassin responsible for overseeing Perkins, who may face a life-threatening situation, he has no intention of reminding him. A nigger, whether he dies or not, is none of his business. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. The villain dies from excessive talk. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. The villain dies from excessive talk. Charlotte Doyle, who returned to the room, was not angry at John Wick's repeated refusal. It was impossible to make someone owe a favor, even a sufficiently large one. He was just trying to deepen John Wick's impression of him and wouldn't be too wary of his sudden help. Because there will soon be a major crisis for John Wick. In the church, he was knocked unconscious by a car driven by Russian gang leader Vygottalasov, and was captured alive and almost suffocated to death with a plastic bag covering his head. Charlotte Doyle planned to snatch John Wick's old friend Marcus, who looked like a green demon, and save him before he could help. After all, saving one person was enough, and Marcus couldn't have two opportunities alone. After a brief rest, he left the Continental Hotel and headed to the church in Little Russia. Because after dawn, John Wick will come here to kill. After arriving at the location, Charlotte Doyle investigated the surroundings of the church and even found the warehouse suspected of imprisoning John Wick. Finally, she chose a roof with a better view and also a relatively concealed area to wait for. Day arrives. A few gunshots from the church woke up Sherlock Doyle, who was hiding in the dark. The arrival of the gunshots indicated that the night demon had begun his slaughter. Charlotte Doyle took out a pair of binoculars and began observing the enemy's killing performance. Pop, 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 a few shots in a row. The gun was deadly, and the entire process flowed smoothly without any nonsense or unnecessary actions, giving people a special charm, rather than being like some mentally disabled people who had to explain the truth of killing someone for a long time, and even had to be affectionate at the scene of the battle. It was simply indescribable. It was John Wick's unwavering killing behavior that caught his attention and led him to take on some ordinary tasks. To be honest, this kind of killer doesn't feel weaker than the so-called Eagle Eye, and it's still very useful in the early stages. Just as Charlotte Doyle sighed, the battle had already ended. At that moment, two women ran out of the church, and soon smoke came up from the basement of the church. He knew that the cash, antiques, artworks, and evidence of collusion with government officials and their manipulation stored by Vygottalasov had been burned by John Wick. Charlotte Doyle smacked her lips and said, "It's just a pity to have all that money. It's okay to make copper coins for me, just burn it like this." Soon he saw John Wick walking out and also began to choose the appropriate perspective for observation. My gaze quickly locked onto a rooftop where I could see the open space in front of the church door. Soon, John Wick walked up. Throughout the journey, John Wick did not find Charlotte Doyle hiding on another rooftop, so both of them waited, except that John Wick was waiting for Vygottalasov's arrival, while he was waiting for John Wick to be captured. Quickly, Vigo received a call and drove with his men. After entering the basement, he came out in a fit of anger and shot the priest who opened the door to John's underground vault in the head. At this moment, John, who saw this scene on the rooftop, hesitated and walked straight down with the Katori-armed CA.415 assault rifle. "Damn it, they all burned me to ashes." At this moment, Vigo was cursing and turned to ask his subordinates beside him, "Can we still make amends? Vigo, do you know what's in the basement? That money doesn't count as much." John Wick's behavior made him extremely angry. Step, step. The sound of the assault rifle came out, and Vigo turned his head to see that a young man beside him had been shot and fell to the ground. He knew it was John Wick who had killed him, so he immediately squatted down and hid on the side of the car. "Damn it, counterattack." The accompanying henchmen immediately pulled out their guns and engaged in a firefight with John Wick. Unfortunately, Vigo's henchmen did not cause any substantial damage to John Wick and were instead killed quite a few times. On the rooftop, Charlotte watched the gunfight below with relish, muttering to herself, "This gang is incomparable to professional assassins, especially legendary assassins like the Night Demon. Their marksmanship is simply unbelievable, and they are all going to become masters of human body contouring." Speaking of which, John used to be under Vigo's command. TSK will eventually be exterminated by the retired assassin under his own command. He is indeed the one who was tricked by his son. 3, 5, 6 are beautiful. In the blink of an eye, John Wick killed 6 people. Charlotte was counting up at the moment, and John, who quickly changed his bullets below, shot 2 more people. By now, he had already killed 8 Russian gangsters. At this moment, one of Vigo's henchmen ran into the car, started the car, and prepared to drive and collide with John Wick. Charlotte Doyle, who discovered this scene, had no intention of helping because the opportunity he was waiting for was coming. Bang! The sound of a car collision was heard, and in the next moment, John Wick was knocked out and fainted. The gunshot stopped, and Vigo, along with his men, tied John Wick up and prepared to take him to a warehouse for a heart-to-heart conversation. Charlotte, who saw this scene, felt somewhat speechless. Although this result was very in line with his own wishes, he still warned himself not to beep when facing the enemy, and to kill the enemy directly. "You said that Vigo will shoot John in one shot, there's nothing else going on. His son won't die, and he won't die either." Sure enough, the villain died from talking too much. At this moment, Charlotte quietly followed behind Vigo and the others, stealthily moving without making any sound. With her speed, she followed them into the warehouse. At this moment, Vygottalasov ordered his men to tie John Wick to a chair. Seeing John slowly waking up, Vigo spoke up and said, "John, let's put it this way. My men will definitely shatter your body into pieces." At this moment, Vigo's subordinates placed a chair opposite John, and Vigo stepped forward to begin his lengthy speech. And Charlotte, hidden in the shadow corner of the warehouse, had a crooked corner of his mouth, which left him somewhat speechless. When Vigo finished talking and one of his subordinates was about to leave, Charlotte took the lead and flew out 2 swords in her hand as she saw John Wick about to be suffocated by a plastic bag. Whoosh, whoosh, with the sound of breaking through the air, the sword in hand instantly killed two gang members who were preparing to take action. The two thugs covered their necks, unable to make any sound, and fell to the ground. After convulsing their limbs, blood spurted out from their necks and they died instantly. At this moment, outside the warehouse, Marcus, who was ready to rescue at any time, saw two swords in his hand killing members of the gang. He knew he didn't need to do it himself, and then he just looked inside through the magnifying glass of his sniper rifle to determine the final result. Charlotte walked out of the shadows and greeted, "Hi, John. I'll just say you need my help." End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Mainland Hotels and Tall Tables. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Mainland Hotels and Tall Tables. John Wick was surprised by the sudden appearance and rescue of Charlotte Doyle, as he had just thought he was going down to accompany his beloved wife and dog. Then he spoke up and said, "Thank you, Charlotte. I owe you one favor." After speaking, John Wick was ready to try to untie the tie on his hand and release it. Looking at John, who was about to be busy, Charlotte Doyle said, "You don't need to be so troublesome. Throw a dart directly and smoothly cut the tie on the opponent's hand." Cool. After John Wick said a word, he didn't stop and picked up the Kel-Tec KSG shotgun on the ground. As he ran, he said, "Charlotte, I'll thank you when I get back to the Continental Hotel. I have something to do now." After speaking, he rushed out of the warehouse. The sunlight shone on Charlotte Doyle, and he pulled out a painless coin. It shook in one direction under the sunlight, and under the refraction of the light, the instantly reflected light shook to Marcus on the rooftop. Marcus realized that he had been discovered, truly a killer with a title, and did not make any unnecessary moves. He was originally here to rescue John Wick, and at this point, he didn't need to take action himself. His old friend lifted the crisis and he was very satisfied. Put away the sniper gun, and Marcus is ready to leave this land of conflict. At this point, John Wick outside had completely blocked Vigo, and with a shotgun, one shot ended up killing Vigo's driver. "Vigo, where is he?" John Wick fired a shot at Vigo's side, then the muzzle was directed at Vigo. After asking about the whereabouts of the other party's son from Vigo's mouth and agreeing to cancel the bounty against him with Vigo, John Wick also agreed not to take action against Vigo. Charlotte Doyle, who walked out of the warehouse, did not show up, but relied on her speed and stealth as a ninja to leave without exposing herself. He didn't pay attention or care about the reconciliation reached between John Wick and Vigo. John has his own ideas. On the one hand, he needs Vigo to lift the assassination bounty against him, and on the other hand, it could also be Vigo, who was his former boss. He only has personal grudges in his heart. Whoever kills his dog or steals his car will be killed. After all, everyone has their own code of conduct. At the same time, in a mainland hotel, Perkins killed Harry in his room and took the gold coin that John had given Harry. At the same time, he thought of the scene where John suddenly rolled out of bed while he was assassinating him. Opening John Wick's room again, Perkins went to the bedside and looked at the head of the bed, discovering a bullet hole. He carefully identified it as a bullet hole left by a sniper rifle bullet, not caused by the handgun she used. Then, following the trajectory, he looked at the window behind him and found a bullet hole on the window. Surprisingly, it ruined my situation. I want you to pay the price. Perkins instantly understood why his assassination had failed, and after recording all of this, he turned around and left the Continental Hotel. On the other hand, Charlotte Doyle, who had left Little Russia, quickly returned to the entrance of the Continental Hotel. She threw a gold coin at the waiter who opened the door, which was counted as the cost of entering the Continental Hotel. After returning to the hotel room, she waited for John to come back and thank him. Charlotte Doyle was still very satisfied with the achievement of this goal. She only killed 2 gangster minions and saved John's life. In exchange for a promise, this deal was not a loss. Thinking of the gold coin she had just used, Charlotte felt a bit speechless in her heart. These gold coins were issued and promoted on high tables, and their purchasing power is simply speechless. Specifically, enter the Mainland Hotel with a gold coin. Check into a Mainland Hotel and receive 1 gold coin. Enter the hotel bar and receive a gold coin. Arrange for a doctor's treatment, 1 gold coin. Handle a corpse and a gold coin. Even like John asking Harry for help, it's a gold coin. In mainland hotels, the lowest price for any service, including killer services, is 1 gold coin. But a gold coin, to put it in a small way, can only allow people to help bring pets into the hotel and take care of them for a few hours. Similarly, it is a gold coin. To put it bluntly, he can even hire a relatively capable assassin to complete an assassination mission. You should know that John Wick, the assassin with the nickname Night Demon, was only rewarded with 4 gold coins to kill him, and 4 gold coins could attract the assassin to commit murder in mainland hotels even if they violated the rules. There are no coins, only beautiful knives. You may not be able to hire assassins to mainland hotels. It can be said that the purchasing power of such gold coins is simply a mystery, with a large fluctuation up and down. However, with the promotion of high platform tables, these gold coins are also hard currency in the killer world. And the one that supports the gold coin is the Mainland Hotel, which is like the mercenary guild in the assassin world. Here, reward missions are released to gather intelligence. Most importantly, becoming a registered member of the Mainland Hotel allows you to enjoy the protection of the Mainland Hotel. For example, war is not allowed within the hotel area. 80% of assassins in New York will register as members of mainland hotels. This is the gathering place of assassins. Of course, there are still various killer organizations outside, but none of them are enough to compete with mainland hotels. And mainland hotels also have their own disciplinarians, specifically punishing assassins who violate mainland hotel rules, and even the managers of each mainland hotel have their own armed forces under their command. Behind the mainland hotels stands another organization. The High Table. Gautai Table is a killer alliance formed by major gangs around the world, with a total of 12 seats, headquartered in the desert near Casalanbuca. These 12 seats are the management of the High Table, occupied by forces such as Camorra, the Mafia, the Glory Society, and the Triad. Where there are people, there will be conflicts, and this High Table composed of major gangs from around the world still stirs up hidden currents and intrigues in the mainland. And Charlotte Doyle had an idea, which was to secure one of these 12 seats. After all, this was a good goal he had in mind before the Marvel scandal began. After all, this business is in line. Ninjas, aren't they responsible for assassinating, gathering intelligence, and even starting wars? Charlotte Doyle, lying in bed, couldn't help but pick up a gold coin and play with it in his hand. The coin instantly jumped on his fingers. On the other hand, Vygottalasov did not drive away immediately after informing John Wick of the location he wanted to know. But instead, he returned to the warehouse where John Wick was previously imprisoned and looked at the 2 corpses on the ground. Vigo stepped forward to investigate. He wanted to know how the Night Demon, who was about to be killed by him, managed to escape and fight back. He knew that his men were carrying firearms, while John was tightly bound. I checked the wounds on the bodies of 2 subordinates, as well as the 2 swords and a dart left on the ground. Vygottalasov's face turned black and he roared, "Ninja Charlotte." End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Vygottalasov's Revenge. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Vygottalasov's Revenge. Vygottalasov was very angry at this moment. He knew who had disrupted his business and roared, "No one can destroy my business again and be safe." After speaking, Vigo no longer stayed, left the warehouse and drove back home. At this moment, his face was gloomy like water, and his affairs had not been smooth since his mischievous father's son provoked the Night Demon. Important information was burned down, and many of his subordinates were killed. In the end, in order to survive, he compromised and revealed the location where his son was hiding, although he had arranged for many of his subordinates to protect there. But Vigo really didn't have much confidence, but he still hoped that his subordinates could save his son's life and kill John who came to kill him. Although the hope was not great, Vigo still held 1 in 10,000 hope and waited for the result. Time passes by minute by second. At this moment, Vigo's face was solemn, smoking heavily, and the ashtray on the table was filled with cigarette butts. He was waiting for the agonizing news. The phone rang and Vigo took a deep breath before answering the call. Upon hearing the news on the phone, Vygottalasov paused and hung up. Then he picked up his cigarette and took a few puffs. Then he picked up the phone, dialed several phone numbers in succession, and arranged some things. At this moment, John Wick, who had avenged himself, returned to the Continental Hotel. Just as he walked into the hotel, the service desk attendant at the Continental Hotel, Charlone, called out to John. "Mr. Wick." Upon hearing Challen call him, John stopped and walked to the service desk, saying, "What's up?" "Challen." Seeing John coming over, Challen took out a car key and said, "Mr. Wick, the Continental Hotel deeply apologizes for what happened last night. This is the compensation from the Continental Hotel management for what happened last night." After speaking, Sharon pushed the car key towards Wick. John Wick glanced at the car key and did not refuse. Instead, he took it directly to his hand and greeted Charlotte before walking upstairs. Arriving at the door of Charlotte Doyle's room, John Wick lightly knocked on the door. Upon hearing someone knocking on the door, Charlotte Doyle knew it was probably John who had arrived. She then opened the door and saw the person outside saying, "John, this matter is over." "Yes, it's done." "Then come in and sit down." After speaking, Charlotte Doyle invited John to come in and sit down, chatting slowly. At this moment, John Wick walked into the room and said, "Charlotte, thank you for your help. You saved my life this time." After speaking, John Wick took out a contract badge from his body and continued, "You said you wanted my blood contract badge before. I don't know what I need to do. If things can be done soon, I won't give you the blood covenant badge, I'll just help you complete the task. After all, you also know that I have retired and left the assassin world for 4 years." Charlotte Doyle said calmly and slowly, "Give me the blood covenant badge. I'll contact you when I need you. There's nothing else I need to do for now." When John Wick heard the other person say this, his face remained calm, but his heart was somewhat solemn. The tasks that Charlotte had to do later may not be easy, but he still handed over the blood covenant badge to the other person. Upon receiving the blood covenant badge, Charlotte smiled. At this moment, he was in a good mood and prepared to remind John Wick. He slowly spoke up and said, "John, did you kill Vigo?" I don't know why Charlotte Doyle asked about this, but John Wick spoke up and said, "I just had some personal grudges with Vigo's son and didn't take action against him. He told me his son's whereabouts and cancelled the bounty." Knowing that John had finally left, Charlotte Doyle spoke up and said, "Vygottalasov is the leader of the Russian mafia, and he won't give up easily. You need to be mentally prepared. I believe Vygottalasov will abide by the agreement with me, but thank you for your reminder." John Wick didn't listen and didn't say anything more. As for whether Marcus can survive, it's up to fate. After bidding farewell to Charlotte Doyle, John Wick checked out at the Continental Hotel and waited for the hotel to register a blood deed badge he had handed over before leaving. Driving the black Dodge gifted by the senior management of a mainland hotel, John Wick was preparing to meet an old friend. After all, not only Charlotte Doyle but also Marcus, who had previously reminded him at the hotel, saved his life. When they came to the old place where they often met, Marcus roasted, "John, how many times do you want me to save you?" John Wick replied, "Thank you very much, Marcus." Marcus forgot to glance at the man in front of him and then spoke up, "You don't seem to be in good condition." "I have already retired, this is my retirement status." Upon hearing his old partner's answer, Marcus was somewhat dissatisfied and said, "Retired? Do you still believe this? You have a new life. You will have a way to get back on the track of life. Marcus patted John Wick's shoulder and continued, "It's time to go home." After sighing, he turned around and left. The conversation between the two was not pleasant. But Marcus and John Wick were unaware that their meeting was recorded by Perkins, who was hiding in the car on the side, and reported to Vygottalasov. In the room, Vygottalasov watched the video brought by Perkins and his face became even worse. He didn't expect that besides the ninja Charlotte Doyle interfering in this matter, the assassin Marcus, whom he had paid for, would betray him. Sometimes, the anger of others interfering is heavier than the betrayal of their subordinates. If it weren't for Marcus's betrayal, his son wouldn't have died. Thinking of this made Vigo even more angry. Without any hesitation, Vygottalasov directly instructed his subordinates to go to the entrance of Marcus's house for containment, and he demanded that Marcus pay the price he deserved for his actions. At the same time, he took out his phone and instructed the other side, "Kill that damn Charlotte Doyle for me. Ninja, I want him to become a dead person." After giving orders to his subordinates, Vigo drove to Marcus's house with Perkins and some of his own subordinates. He wanted to take care of him at the other person's house and use the methods of a Russian gang to deal with this betrayed assassin. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Ambush. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Ambush. Charlotte Doyle entered the Naruto interface at a mainland hotel and checked in today, earning a reward of 30,000 copper coins. Whether to upgrade to a VIP2 user and enjoy double-check.in rewards. Looking at the recharge invitation popping up again, Charlotte felt a bit helpless. It's not that he wants to be a leopard head, but he really doesn't know how to recharge and can only reluctantly choose to close it. After receiving John Wick's Blood Covenant badge, Charlotte Doyle went to the service desk of the Continental Hotel, checked out, and left the Continental Hotel. Watching the sky darken, Charlotte Doyle did not go to her own office. There was Hiroka Hayano in charge, so there was no need to worry for the time being. If there were any difficult tasks, the other party would contact him. Although Hiroka was just a teaching ninja in Hokage, it was still very easy to complete tasks before Marvel had even started. But instead, he drove his beloved Mercedes-Benz 300 SL to 405, Lexington Avenue in Manhattan, New York. He rented a 200-square-meter floor in the Chrysler Building for his usual residence. In fact, Charlotte once looked for the Star Tower on Fifth Avenue, mainly because the terms of the building that were not for African Americans to rent or purchase were very attractive to him. A non-African American apartment, to be honest, attracted him more. By the way, let's take a look and see if he has visited the Marvel world where those few people are located. However, the result is that there is no apartment called Star Tower on Fifth Avenue, and there is no presence of those people themselves. To be honest, it still left him with a hint of disappointment. At the same time, it also avoids the problem of competing on the same stage as the predecessors of the Walkers. Finally, before dark, Charlotte drove from Fifth Avenue to Lexington Avenue and slowly drove into the underground parking lot of the Chrysler Building. At this moment, the security guard in charge of the underground parking lot of the building saw Charlotte Doyle's car from a distance and immediately opened the gate, smiling and paying tribute. The main reason is that Charlotte Doyle's Mercedes-Benz 300 SL is too distinctive. The 1954 Mercedes-Benz Collection Gull-Wing sports car was too recognizable, and only Charlotte was willing to drive such a highly collectible old car on the road. That's right, the Mercedes-Benz 300 SL produced in 1954 is indeed a true vintage car. Charlotte bought this car from a bankrupt tycoon, and at that time it only traveled over 2,000 kilometers, and the owner maintained it very well, which did not affect driving on the road. In Charlotte Doyle's eyes, cars still have to be taken out and kept as exhibits in the garage is not his original intention. Through the gate, the car slowly drove into the underground garage and arrived at her parking spot. Charlotte parked the car and as soon as she got off, she felt a murderous aura. Gunshots rang out, and in the midst of lightning and flint, Charlotte took out a painless bullet from the shadow space and struck it at the incoming bullet. Dang! With a crisp impact, the bullet was split open by Charlotte Doyle. The next moment, a sword in hand was thrown by Charlotte and directly inserted into the neck of the shooter, instantly killing him. But when he fell to the ground, the finger on the trigger did not release, as it was a continuous fire, and the bullets from the assault rifle shot towards the car next to Charlotte. Damn it! Charlotte cursed inwardly, but her movements did not stop. She slashed all the bullets that came in and finally saved the car's life. And all of this happened between electric light and flint. Just as I saved my beloved car and didn't even catch my breath, 4 gunmen appeared and aimed at Charlotte Doyle, pulling the trigger fiercely. A large number of bullets were released, forming a barrage of bullets. Fortunately, Charlotte quickly sealed her seal upon seeing the gunman, using her stunt double in a timely manner to avoid the barrage of bullets. Just the car behind me, instantly turned into a sieve. And the 4 gunmen watched as Charlotte Doyle in front of them instantly turned into a wooden stake. They were all stunned, and even the pulled trigger stopped without realizing it. At this moment, Charlotte, who appeared on the side through a stunt double, suddenly transformed her figure. With a whoosh. Just as he approached a gunman, he didn't scratch his neck. 1 gunman instantly died and collapsed to the ground. At this moment, the other 3 gunmen had just reacted and immediately turned the muzzle. Unfortunately, the 3 of them had not yet turned around, and Charlotte's figure appeared in front of them like a ghost, instantly wiping their necks with bitterness. As all 5 gunmen died, the underground parking lot instantly quieted down. No other gunman jumped out again, and Charlotte Doyle walked up to her beloved car, looking at the dense bullet marks on the body, instantly feeling heartbroken. This is an antique car that he really likes, I'm not sure if it can still be repaired. No longer looking at the damaged Mercedes-Benz 300 SL, Charlotte was curious about which bold guy dared to attack him. Charlotte Doyle approached several gunmen and found that they were all Russians. In an instant, she guessed that all of this was done by that bastard Vigo. Damn Vigo. In the battle this morning, he did not retract his sword from his hand, but left it at the scene as a sign to tell Vigo that the person was saved by his ninja Charlotte. I originally wanted to intimidate Vigo, but it turned out to be counterproductive. Instead, the other party sent their subordinates and found the door. After knowing who the target is, the rest of the matter is easy to handle. Charlotte Doyle took out her phone and dialed a number, which was quickly answered. Charlie, Chrysler Building parking lot, dinner for 5 people. Yes, it's now. I just hung up the phone, but after a while, my phone rang. Charlotte Doyle glanced at the incoming number and pressed the connect button. Charlotte, is that you? John, it's me. On the other end of the phone, John Wick was a bit sad and said in a tone, should have killed Vigo. That scumbag and his men killed my old friend Marcus. He saved me at the Continental Hotel yesterday. Charlotte, Vigo may also take action against you, you need to be careful of your safety. Charlotte Doyle looked at the 5 corpses on the ground and said, we've already taken action. What? I have already taken out all the subordinates sent by Vigo. After hearing that Charlotte Doyle had killed all the people sent by Vigo, John Wick spoke up, as long as you're okay, I'm going to find Vigo to settle the accounts. We'll be in touch afterwards. After speaking, John Wick hung up the phone. Upon hearing the busy sound on the phone, Charlotte Doyle knew that John was going to avenge his old friend. Glancing at his beloved car again, he murmured, since someone is going to kill you, I won't go and snatch that person's head. But this debt has to be counted towards the heads of your Russian gang. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Reciprocity and Reciprocity. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Reciprocity and Reciprocity. Charlotte Doyle calls Ginny's phone number from her mobile phone and dials it. In less than 3 seconds, the phone was answered. Ginny, help me check Vygottalasov's gang address in New York and send it to me as soon as possible. Ginny didn't ask for the reason, but simply replied, understood. After briefly assigning the task, Charlotte Doyle hung up the phone. He knew that the church was just a stronghold of the Russian mafia, and the main base of the gang was not there, and the things in the church were not all of the Russian mafia. The focus there is still on the handling of officials and evidence of bribery. Charlotte Doyle waited in the underground parking lot. Not long after, a van drove into the underground parking lot. Charlie got out of the car and came to Charlotte. He took off his hat and placed it on his chest, saying, "It's an honor to serve you, Mr. Doyle." "I'll leave this to you, Charlie." Charlotte Doyle took out 5 gold coins from her pocket and put them in Charlie's hand. Taking the coins, Charlie quickly tidied up the scene with his team. And at this moment, Ginny's text message also arrived. She glanced at the address and found it to be an abandoned factory located in the suburbs of Brooklyn. Taking another look at her damaged Mercedes-Benz, Charlotte Doyle took a deep breath. This is an antique car that even original parts have stopped selling. Mad, just kill me. Surprisingly, he scrapped my car. Fake. After spitting out a mouthful of turbid air, Charlotte finally walked out of the underground parking lot. Leaving the underground parking lot, the security guard at the entrance had long disappeared, possibly due to hearing gunshots and choosing to run away directly. Arriving on the road, she stopped a taxi directly, and Charlotte Doyle said the address before closing her eyes and regaining her composure in the car. There is no flying thunder god, nor is there any heavenly sending technique. Although Charlotte Doyle admits that his speed is not slower than cars in the city, if he really wants to run over, he is afraid that the next day, Coulson from the Divine Shield will come knocking on his door. On the other side, John Wick had already driven to his friend's house, got out of the car, pulled out his gun, and carefully entered the room. At this moment, Vigo and his henchmen had already left. In the room, there was only Marcus, who had been shot several times and had fallen into a pool of blood. John Wick's face was solemn, and he sat quietly beside his friend's body. After a moment, the phone rang. John Wick answered the phone, and Winston's voice came from inside. "John, I know you want to get news about Vigo from me. But mainland hotels have the rules of mainland hotels, so I won't tell you that there is a helicopter waiting for someone at a certain helicopter airport, filled with gas." Upon hearing Winston's words, John Wick immediately understood that it was the other person's prompt and hung up the phone. Looking at Marcus lying on the side, John Wick decided to seek revenge for his friend. "Get up, leave Marcus's home, and drive towards a certain helicopter airport." At this moment, New York City has entered night, and the sky is pitch black. The city appears even more brilliant due to the neon lights. On the other side, just as Charlotte Doyle got off the car, she saw the taxi leave at a faster speed than before. Obviously, taxi drivers also know that this place is not a safe zone. At this moment, the arrival of the taxi clearly caused the security personnel near the factory to be alarmed. In just a few days, the Russian gang led by Vigo has become a frightened bird. Although it has been heard that the boss and the Night Demon have reached a reconciliation, the gang's living power has long been slaughtered by John Wick. They are also concerned that other gangs may come to fight or seize the territory and business of the Russian gang at this time. After all, Vigo is just a gang leader, not an army. The number of people is left there, and as more subordinates die, their strength will inevitably decline. After all, John Wick killed quite a few people, killing 70 of their brothers. The guard force near the abandoned factory building significantly weakened, with only 2 people guarding outside, and a beam of light shining on Charlotte Doyle. "What kind of person are you?" A strong man appeared in front of Charlotte Doyle, looking bulging and probably hiding a firearm. He was holding a flashlight and shining the light on Charlotte Doyle's face, as if trying to see who it was. Charlotte Doyle didn't respond, her figure flashed, and she instantly approached the other person. Her left hand covered the other person's mouth, preventing him from making any sound. The pain on her right hand caressed the other person's neck, and she instantly solved the problem. At this moment, Charlotte Doyle murmured softly, "These scum in society should also be cleaned up." It seems that I need to be a cleaner. The next second, Charlotte imprinted her hands and cast a transformation spell, transforming into the appearance of the opponent. Reaching out, he took off the other person's walkie-talkie and earphone, and put them on himself. As for the other party's body, Charlotte Doyle took it to a dark corner and hid it. Due to the darkness of the night, another guard did not notice any abnormalities. So, Charlotte Doyle swaggered back. Upon seeing his companion return, another guard spoke up and asked, "Bob, is there anything unusual?" Charlotte Doyle smiled and replied, "No problem, the guy who got off the wrong car has already been sent away." At this moment, the guard was about to speak when Charlotte suddenly intervened and inserted herself from the opponent's neck, while covering their mouth with one hand and saying, "Don't speak, take a deep breath, yes, take a deep breath." After pausing for about 3 breaths and confirming the death of the other party, Charlotte Doyle placed their body against the wall and sat down, then gently opened the door of the factory building and walked in. So Charlotte Doyle openly infiltrated the lair of the Russian gang. At this moment in the factory building, a Russian man was holding a bottle of vodka in his hand, pouring it into his mouth while muttering, "Aiden, a killer who killed so many of us, the boss actually reconciled. Damn it, we're the Russian gang. Smash the money, I'm afraid he might do something. If you can't buy his life for 4 million, use 8 million. If it doesn't work out, it's only 10 million. A small night demon can still turn the tide." At this moment, the person being called Aiden spoke up and said, "Wes, you're drunk." At the same time, he walked forward and took the vodka from Wes's hand. The boss must have his own reasons for doing this. Let's keep a low profile during this period and don't let other gangs find opportunities to attack us. Upon hearing Aiden's words, Wes became even more depressed. He snatched back his vodka and took a deep breath before suddenly seeing Charlotte Doyle enter, shouting, "Bob, if you don't go outside and guard well, you'll run in and slack off. Didn't you hear Aiden say you need to be on guard during this time?" End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Killing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Killing. Charlotte Doyle didn't pay attention to Wes's shouting, but quickly looked at the entire factory. The factory was quite large, divided into 3 floors, 2 above-ground floors, and 1 underground floor. On the first floor, there were multiple cars parked, and some tables, chairs, and sofas were also placed. There are 12 people on the first floor, armed with firearms, scattered in various places, but 4 of them are guarding the entrance to the basement floor. Seeing 4 guards at the entrance of the basement floor, Charlotte Doyle secretly speculated that the basement floor was the location of the vault. At this moment, seeing Bob not paying attention to him or going out, instead looking around, Wes was instantly angry. He walked directly to Charlotte Doyle and shouted, "Bob, are you deaf? ITMD told you to go out and guard quickly." I was about to reach out and push Bob out while speaking. At this moment, Charlotte, who had already investigated the information inside the factory building, directly rewarded the Russian tycoon who wanted to push him, and instantly pierced his heart. Wes looked incredulously at the agony in his heart and pointed to Charlotte Doyle. You, Wes, who had not spoken a complete sentence for half a day, ultimately collapsed on his back and died on the spot. At this moment, Aiden, who had been paying attention to Wes, was momentarily dumbfounded and shouted, "Bob has defected, kill him." At the same time, he pulled out his pistol and was about to shoot, and the other members also reacted to Aiden's reminder. At this moment, Charlotte Doyle, who had already investigated everything, instantly slid out 8 bitter nothings in his hand, as if he were shooting them in all directions like a heavenly maiden scattering flowers. Ku Wu instantly shot at the feet of several gangsters. Seeing that Ku Wu did not hit anyone, but instead inserted himself into the ground beneath him, the few of them were about to start mocking when they noticed that the paper tied to Ku Wu was instantly burning. Boom, 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 the continuous sound of explosions instantly killed all the guards except for the entrance to the basement floor. At this moment, Hearing the explosion downstairs, the gangsters on the second floor immediately reacted and shouted, "Enemy attack! Immediately carry the gun and go downstairs to provide support." The 4 members guarding the entrance of the basement, 3 of whom were directly killed by the detonating talisman shot in, and the only remaining person was also seriously injured. After notifying the people on the second floor to come down for reinforcements through walkie-talkies and the members on the basement were on guard, they fainted. At this moment, the smoke brought by the explosion in the field had not yet dissipated, and the 2 gang members who rushed down first raised their guns to be vigilant and wanted to find the enemy's position. At this moment, a figure appeared in the smoke, and one of the gang members shouted loudly, "Over there." In an instant, the 2 of them pulled the trigger, and flames suddenly appeared. Several bullets formed a barrage and shot towards the figure in the smoke. The bullet passed through the figure in the smoke, without any screams or the feeling of hitting the human body. But Charlotte Doyle used clone art to create an illusion that caught the attention of others. At the next moment, several swords in hand shot towards the direction of firing. Ah! 2 screams, 2 gang members who had just fired, died on the spot. Upon hearing the sound of gunshots stopping and screams coming out, the second floor had just picked up their weapons and was running downstairs. Several members of the gang who were preparing to provide support changed their faces. The few who had rushed down the stairs suddenly became much more cautious, slowing down and slowly descending the stairs, preparing to shoot blindly at the corner. At this moment, Charlotte Doyle made a sprint and arrived at the stairwell at the entrance of the second floor. He squatted down and then sprinted, causing the cement floor to explode. His figure rushed straight towards the second floor like a bolt of lightning. The people who were preparing to support along the way were all killed by Charlotte Doyle's painless throat before they realized it. All the way to the second floor, Charlotte Doyle did not stop, her figure wandering in the rain of bullets, taking away lives one by one, like a god of death. At this moment, the gang members on the second floor collapsed and no longer formed an effective counterattack. 3 more people took the opportunity to smash the window and jump downstairs, shouting and shouting. At this point, except for the 3 people who jumped off the building, all the gang members on the second floor had already been killed by Charlotte Doyle with painstaking efforts. And itself is completely unscathed. Arriving at the broken window, looking at the 3 people who were limping and still trying to escape, Charlotte Doyle saw 3 swords in her hand and threw them at the 3 fleeing gangsters. Whoosh, 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 3 swords in hand were instantly inserted into the necks of the 3 people. In the next second, the 3 people who had not yet reached the road fell to the ground, and blood spurted out from their necks, staining the ground beneath them. Seeing all 3 people dead, Charlotte Doyle nodded in satisfaction and didn't let anyone go. Shaking the unbearable bloodstains, Charlotte Doyle walked down the second floor and arrived at the entrance of the basement floor, which had previously been guarded by 4 guards. Entering the entrance, there was still one who had not died completely. Charlotte Doyle stepped forward and repaired the wound, completely sending him back to Satan's embrace. At this moment, he began to carefully observe the entrance. The entrance to the basement floor of Faxion was unexpectedly blocked by a huge anti-theft door, not a wooden door or a household anti-theft door, but a 10-centimeter thick anti-theft steel door. He was just curious that there was reinforcements coming down from the second floor, but there was no reinforcements coming up from the basement floor. It turned out that this door had isolated the inside and outside, and people outside had to have the opportunity to open it. At this moment, the 6 guards on the basement floor were feeling uneasy. One of the gangsters holding an assault rifle spoke up, "Tana, there's no movement outside. Have we already dealt with the enemy?" The man who was called Tana did not answer him, but pressed the walkie-talkie on his waist and whispered, "Sam, how is the situation outside? Has the crisis been resolved?" At this moment, Charlotte Doyle, who was outside the anti-theft door, moved her ears and heard a sound coming from the earphones of a corpse on the ground. Charlotte Doyle walked forward, picked up the walkie-talkie and earphones, and said to the people inside, "Sam is dead, it's your turn soon. The next moment, the walkie-talkie was crushed by Charlotte Doyle, and the residue slipped off her hand. Behind the anti-theft door. At this moment, everyone looked at each other, and the words transmitted through the walkie-talkie were not only heard by him, but also by all the guards. He can't break in. This anti-theft door is customized by the leader of Vigo according to the bank's vault door. Without high explosive materials, it can't be opened. Upon hearing Tana's analysis, the other 5 also slightly calmed their tense emotions. At this moment, Tana spoke up and said, "Don't worry, call Vigo now and ask him to send someone to support him, informing him that his base has been attacked." The man named Emoda immediately reacted upon hearing this, ran to the side, picked up the phone on the table, and dialed it out. End of this chapter.